It is a new year. 2025 is upon us, Mr. Jesse.
Already.
And so we have some big things coming up in January, right? For one, there's something to do with January 6th or something like that.
Yeah, is that your birthday or?
No, not quite.
Oh, well, there must be something else
I
important
think
about
there
it.
was some kind of big event that happened at the Capitol. Yeah.
Oh,
some
yeah,
good
I
stuff.
heard about that a few years ago.
Yeah. So, Mr. Jesse's been staying up all night, just slaying away, doing a lot of research on January 6th. Went through several different rabbit holes and came out a genius, apparently, is what he's telling me. So,
Well, according to my mom, I was born a genius.
Ooh.
But, I mean, whatever.
Man.
I'll take it either way.
hey, whatever Mama says is absolutely true.
right.
So yeah, we're gonna kind of dig deep, a little bit into January 6th, since it's coming up on the eve of January 6th, and that would be a total of, because it was 2021, January 6th, 2021. So
2021. And
4-year anniversary, is that correct?
Yep, we did 4 year. And actually, this episode will be dropping on January 6th.
That is true. And so we have January 6th coming up, a lot of hearings, confirmation hearings coming up as well. Then the inauguration in January 20th, just a big month ahead of us. But we want to focus primarily on January 6th. And January 6th it's turning into a big possible psyop
Yes.
in a way.
Yes, there is involvement that should not have been there, and more information is coming out. As a matter of fact, a new report just dropped on the 12th of December.
Yes, that is exactly right. This was dropped by the DOJ Office of Internal, OIG, basically.
The Inspector General.
Yeah. His name was Michael E. Horowitz, and they did a pretty thorough, well, quote unquote, thorough investigation. And you'll hear exactly what I mean by that here in a little while. But one thing that was interesting that we talked about was there was a total of 26, according to the report, 26 CHSs, and CHS.
That stands for Confidential Human Source. It's their informants. So they're not actual FBI employees,
Okay.
but they are paid for information.
Okay. So 26.
Informants. We'll just go with that's a lot easier to say than CHS.
I like that.
Yeah, I found out 26 of them were actually there at the Capitol on that day. And we can break that down. In the report that was dropped, they did break it down. There was 26 total that were confirmed to have been there. Only 3 of them were actually tasked to report on specific subjects. And those subjects were possibly attending January 6th events. So they didn't even know for sure, the way this sounds, that they were going to be there, but they were tasked to watch them in case they were there. So 3 of the 26 were actually given a job to do.
3 of the 26. Wow. So do we know what the other 23 were up to?
Well, we have a little bit of information on that. Of those 3 that were actually tasked during the events, one of them actually entered the Capitol building. The other 2 entered restricted areas. Now, also, according to the report, they were not given the go-ahead to do that. They were not supposed to be involved in anything like that.
Interesting. So
Supposedly.
you're saying, so the FBI in general did not know or did not give them permission to act,
Yes.
but they did anyways, is what you're saying.
But they did. Yes.
Some rogue actors here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, so we have 3 that were inside, that went inside the Capitol with.
3 out of the 26 went in.
Okay.
One of the 3 that were actually tasked with the job that day, one of those went into the Capitol. The other 2 went into restricted areas. But 3 total out of the 26 entered the actual Capitol. And 11 of them entered into the restricted area.
Okay.
So that is one of the
rabbit holes you went down.
one of the interesting things that they put in that report. They did not flat out come out and say that any of them committed a crime, but they did make sure to say that 11 of them definitely did not commit a crime. So if you want to read between the lines there, that's up to you. To me, it sounds
That sounds a little fishy.
like some of them did.
Yeah. A little play on words there.
Yeah, they're definitely playing with them.
So Jesse, he was a mad scientist last night and went down. So he read this article that was posted by the Inspector General. We mentioned that it was released on December 12th. And he kind of found a couple of things that were out of place and decided to go down and do research specifically on 2 different areas. He said that he could have went several different areas because it was like a what's that monster that once you cut its head off it grows 2 more, where it's you know what I'm talking about? That Greek monster? Yeah.
Yeah, you cut off a head and 2 more will replace it.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the monster, but it almost sounds like it's this, right? Once you go down one rabbit hole, it reveals even a bigger possible conspiracy in a way. So, Jesse, do you want to go down one of those?
Yeah, we can get on that.
holes?
I do want to throw out a correction in there real quick. I said 11 a while ago. 9 of the informants that attended actually did not go into the restricted area or enter the Capitol.
Okay.
And it says they did not engage in illegal activity for those 9 out of the total. So,
Yeah.
just a little correction. I find it interesting, though, that of the 26, only 3 were told to be there. And I've worked a lot of different jobs, and I've never shown up to work with a bunch of other people and not be tasked with a job there.
Right.
I'm just not showing up. So why were they even there?
That's a good question.
They say they weren't tasked to be there. Okay. Why were they there, though?
That is and we don't know the answer to that, do we?
We don't know.
Okay.
I would like to know,
Yeah.
but no, we don't know. So I find that interesting. And then once they entered in, so as of December 12th, and this is according to the New York Times, according to the New York Times, as of December 12th, just under 1,600 of the J6 attendees have been charged. And a lot of them are sentenced to serve time. And I could have the percentage wrong. I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it was something like 67% of them were actually charged and going to serve time.
Man.
Now, of that roughly 1,600, none of the informants have been charged with a crime.
Interesting.
Even though some of them entered into the Capitol and others entered into restricted area, which some of the crimes that the other J6 attendees are being charged with include unlawful entry, trespass, and disorderly conduct, which is all part of entering into those areas.
Yeah.
And they're being charged, but none of the informants are.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know. I would like to have that perk, though.
Yeah. That's
It's to me, it sounds like rules for thee, not for me.
exactly. Yeah.
So anybody that has ever wondered, do we have two different sets of
Justice system.
justice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
100% we do. Not everybody is treated equally under the law
Right.
in this country as they should be.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just go up for, Congress and Senate and President. Apparently it goes for even FBI informants,
Yep.
not even employees.
Right. Wow.
So,
I did hear that. Now, I don't know if this is for certain, but I did hear that Trump was going to issue a blanket pardon for J6 attendees that were charged and convicted of crimes. I hope he follows through with that.
I hope that's the case as well.
Yeah.
And I know he's kind of floated out different ideas. Some just saying he would pardon some of the J6 attendees. Okay. And another one saying it just a blanket for all of them and just be done with this.
Right.
Now, if you want my opinion on the pardons, I feel like if Joe Biden can go ahead and pardon his son for, well, he attempted to do.
He was innocent though, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It was Russian disinformation is what that was.
Yeah, those 50 something intelligence agencies, or not agencies, but agents.
Agents, yeah.
That could confirm that the laptop was Russian disinformation, right?
Yeah, that's what we were told. And that just goes to show you we should definitely trust everything we hear from the FBI, CIA.
That's right. Even from the skeptics table.
Yes.
Question everything.
Yes, everything. And
That's
everyone.
Right. Everyone.
So if Joe Biden was able to just go out and pardon his son, even though saying he wouldn't, why would he not throw out a pardon for the J6 people?
Well, for one, they weren't involved in any type of human trafficking. They did not kill anybody, right? And so
they didn't illegally own a firearm.
No. Did you see the pardons that or not necessarily the pardons? There was not a commute. There's pardon, and then there's what's the other word?
Commuting the sentence.
Is it commuting? Yeah. And so there was several prisoners through the federal that were under the federal government.
Yes.
The federal prisons that committed federal crimes were on death row, and he wanted to commute that to where they were not serving a death sentence, rather life without parole.
Yes, I did see that.
Yeah. So I don't think any of the J6 convictees, is that a word? Or
for some of them, yes.
Yeah. I don't think any of them would fall under that. I don't think.
No, and I find that interesting too, that he wanted to go ahead and commute those sentences to make sure that they could not get the death penalty, because life matters as long as you're a criminal.
Yep.
But it does not matter if you're in the womb.
No, not at all. Because apparently it's some type of bacteria in the woman or something until it comes out of the womb, I guess. I don't know. It's just things like that if you use reason and a little bit of your brain power, you can come to conclusion that this just doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But that's a different...
Yeah, that's a different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
We'll leave that one for another day.
Yeah.
But something for y'all to think about.
Exactly. So back to January 6th. January 6th, so we talked about these informants that a couple of them went into the Capitol. Others did not. They stayed out of they possibly were around the Capitol.
Yes, around it, but they came into the restricted zone where they were not allowed, but did not enter the actual building.
Okay.
Still illegal, considered trespass, unlawful entry.
For sure.
But not charged with.
Yeah. But were attendees at the January 6th, I guess it was a protest, kind of stop the steal kind of thing. They were some of those that were not in the Capitol, but were in the restricted zone. Do we know if any of those were charged and convicted of a crime?
I do not know
Yeah.
for sure on that one. I should have dug into that.
No,
that's a good question.
But it just makes you wonder. And I'm assuming that they were. Some of them were.
I would assume so, considering that they've thrown charges at almost 1,600.
Right.
I can't imagine all 1,600 of those were in the Capitol.
Only in the Capitol. Yeah.
That's a pretty big chunk of people.
So the first rabbit hole you went down was mainly talking about the informants, right? The informants that
Yes.
were around the Capitol or in the Capitol. Did you cover all the information from that rabbit hole? Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I'm really good at bouncing around, so I will probably remember some,
Yeah. Okay.
but not off the top of my head right now.
That's fine. So, like I said, there was 2 different rabbit holes he went down. For me, let me just tell you how I feel about January 6th and just how I have observed it from afar. I just have not been able to really follow January 6th in general because it makes me very angry. I feel like it's a nasty injustice against the American people. These people that have been arrested, several of them have not been charged and have been held indefinitely, totally against the Constitution. It's violating their rights, their legal rights, their constitutional rights. But I just can't. For me, it's hard for me to follow because it's so complex. It's not just, well, we had this insurrection, quote unquote, and they wanted to overturn the election. It's not like that. It's not that simple. And that wasn't really the motive. In fact, Trump came out several times and tried to, squash this and get people to
Peacefully disperse.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just something that I have not really had much interest in because it makes me so angry whenever I hear about it and maybe listen to it listen about some information on a podcast or anything like that. So that's kind of where I have stood on January 6th.
Yeah, it's hard to dig into one whenever every time you listen to it, you require a high blood pressure medication.
Dude, I'm telling you. It's pretty frustrating.
I will say, I'll touch on, because you were talking about some of these J6 protesters being held indefinitely without charges. I mean, a lot of them were held for a very long time without charges. And we can thank the Patriot Act for that. So thank you, George W.
Yeah. That guy again.
Yeah. We'll dig into him sometime, I'm sure. But the Patriot Act is definitely one that needs to go away.
Oh, gosh. I'm telling you. Yeah, I mean, that can go. I mean, that's another topic as well that we could touch on too. Just how frustrating and how 9/11 in general, how much it just changed our society for the worse.
Yes. Yeah. And changed our entire governmental system for the worse.
Yeah.
Definitely leading it more towards the tyrannical side.
Mm-hmm. I hate Tyrannosaurus Rex for sure.
Me too. They could never stir the pot. I mean, it's anyways.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's, it's frustrating. So was there any additional information you want to add on that first rabbit hole, or do you want to go to?
No, I just like to throw that out there as just as a little teaser. I want people to think about that and how much sense it makes that the American people can be charged, but if you are affiliated with the government, you get a pass, and it's very frustrating to me.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear from y'all. Throw some comments out there. We can dig in deeper on this. Throw some questions out there, and we can go in on it. There is another side of it that I dug into that we can go on, and that is, I don't know if you remember Michael Flynn.
Yeah. General Michael Flynn. Yeah.
Yes. And well, here, we'll start with this. I'll just read you. This is a really short snippet out of the report from the Inspector General.
Okay.
And it starts off, confusion and lack of coordination contributed to the FBI's inaccurate report to Congress that it had canvassed field offices. And so typically before they do anything like this, when they know there's going to be protests or a major event, the FBI will come in and they'll canvass their field offices, and they'll try to get information from their informants to see if there is a threat. And they'll use that information and decide how many agents they need to deploy in different areas for this. So they did not canvass their field offices beforehand to get any of this information. It's a very basic step that they admitted is a very basic step that should have been done, and they didn't do. However, the big kicker to me on that is they said they did it. So, and I'll read this. I'll finish reading this now. It says, after January 6th, the FBI reported to Congress that it had directed its field offices prior to January 6th to canvass their informants for information concerning threats in connection with the January 6th electoral certification. However, as noted, we found that no canvassing of field offices for source information had occurred. We found that the FBI's statements to Congress were not intentionally inaccurate, and that confusion and lack of coordination communications contributed to the inaccurate reporting. So the FBI told Congress that, yes, we did this. They did not do it. Now, they were very smart for throwing in there that they found that it was not intentionally inaccurate.
That's what I was about to say. I wanted to go back to.
Yes.
How do they know that? That it wasn't intentionally.
Well, your guess is as good as
Exactly.
mine.
Like,
They can pretty well say whatever they want, I'm assuming.
so basically what the IG said is, trust us, bro.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Basically, anytime I hear a statement like that, it makes me feel like us as the American people are the victim in an abusive relationship, and we just can't figure out how to get away.
Yeah.
And all we can do is listen to them and say, "Oh, trust us,
Yeah,
trust us.
trust
We
us."
still love you."
Yep.
And what are we to do?
Yeah.
So the reason I bring up Michael Flynn is, I don't know if you remember this. He was actually charged with, and it's 18 U.S. Code 1001. What that is it's a felony for lying to the FBI. Now, this same law applies when you lie to Congress.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So he went through that. Now, if you're charged with this, it's a felony, and that comes with a fine or 5 years in prison, or both. Now, the only separation of that is it can actually be bumped up to 8 years if that lie involves international or domestic terrorism, which is what they were trying to claim J6 was domestic terrorism, is what they're saying, right?
So they found a loophole.
Yes, and so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the cause of it, of the domestic or international terrorism, but if that lie has anything to do with a case that involves that, is the way I understand it. So Michael Flynn was charged with this. Now, Trump did pardon Michael Flynn. He's a free man. He was pardoned for this. However, what I find interesting is this was also released on the 12th. This is from the New York Times. Well, let me let you run away with this for a
So
second.
yeah,
and
while
find
you're
my
looking that
page.
up, I one thing that came to mind when you said, you know, it's Flynn was charged with lying to FBI, right?
Yes.
What happens when the FBI lies to us?
Exactly.
Is that a crime?
That's exactly where I was trying to go with this. And not necessarily because it's not a crime if they lie to us.
right.
However, it is a crime if they lie to Congress, which they did,
Yeah.
even though
But
that's not a big lie, whatever. It doesn't matter.
it was a mistake,
It's
though,
still,
right?
yeah, it was unintentional. And that's what I find funny on the Michael Flynn case is they had, let me read. See, I will get lost.
Trying to find it.
New York Times, here we go. That is not New York Times.
It's all right. No, I just found, you know, it's like I said, this whole thing is so complex, and it's done that way on purpose. They don't want the American people to be able to follow along. Just throw out as much confusion as you can muster, just to confuse the American people. That way, there's no true justice or answers in general. The truth. Where is the truth? Well, we don't know exactly the whole truth because they throw out everything to make it so confusing and to follow along. It's hard to understand exactly what went down on January 6, 2021.
It is. I did find where I was looking for, and that's why I was lost. I was looking for New York Times. This is actually from the BBC. And this says that in a court filing, this is before he was pardoned by Trump for Michael Flynn. It said the Justice Department said it moved to dismiss the charges after a considered review of all the facts and circumstances of the case, including newly discovered and disclosed information. The department said the interview between investigators and Flynn in January 2017 was unjustified and not conducted on a legitimate investigative basis. So not only were they not even supposed to have done that, then they turn around and charged him for lying, and they weren't even supposed to be talking to him. Now, part of it did say later on in that report saying that there was also no evidence that he intentionally lied. Well, that comes back into the FBI. Their report saying they did not intentionally lie to Congress, but they still went ahead and charged Michael Flynn, but they're fine.
Yeah.
The FBI's fine because they didn't mean to.
Yeah. Sorry. Just a little slap on the wrist, right? You'll be okay next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as you can see, it is very complex and very, you know, there's so much injustice that's been happening to these January 6 attendees, or that I'm hopeful that we'll get at least some truth during the Trump presidency. But, you know, we were talking a little bit yesterday about, you know, how the JFK files haven't been released. So, you know, you made the argument yesterday that we may not know the whole truth until after we're gone.
Yeah. It may not happen in our lifetimes.
So do you not think that we'll absolutely know the truth during the Trump presidency, or do you think there'll be some type of...
No, I don't
blockage?
think we will. There's
Yeah.
definitely going to be a fight on that, and there's definitely going to be blockage. My biggest hope is that he just follows through with the pardon. We may not know the truth, but
Right.
free these people.
Yeah,
It's what a terrible injustice.
right. Yeah, no, it's really, they've screwed up the system so much these past 4 years that there is so many different routes and issues that need to be solved that I don't even know if this is in the top 10 of what Trump is hoping to accomplish during his presidency. I mean, there's so much going on.
Yeah, there's a lot. I wouldn't think it would be. I mean, it definitely should be, like we said already, as far as pardoning them.
Sure.
As far as releasing all of the information and getting that out to us, I don't think that's of a major concern to him.
Yeah.
But if we can get in on this Doge and they actually take recommendations, a major step would be just reducing the size of the FBI and the CIA. We don't need them to be as large as they are.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure if anybody is still listening to this podcast after our first one, y'all are going to have some of the same feelings we have about the FBI in general.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't exactly been transparent and helpful in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
How many times are you going to let your abusive spouse beat you before you start thinking probably shouldn't
Yeah.
be around them much?
Exactly.
I don't have any trust, no faith in them anymore.
Right.
And that's unfortunate because I think the FBI could play a really good role for our country.
Absolutely.
And they have.
They have. And, I'm sure they're just like any other field. I'm sure there is honorable FBI agents out there.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, where are those honorable FBI agents as far as whistleblowing? That we have a few
Yes.
out there that have come forth. But we got to have more.
We do have to have more. And you're right. With any industry, there's going to be good and there's going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the system as a whole right now in the FBI is bad.
Yeah.
And it needs to change. And how many good FBI agents are just following orders?
Right.
That's not an acceptable excuse.
You mean that wasn't an acceptable excuse for the Nazis? They were just following orders, right?
They were just following orders. Yeah, they were just good people.
Now, let me clarify. I'm not comparing the FBI agents to Nazis.
We're
I'm
not.
just
And
making
we're
a
also using
historical
a lot
reference.
We're also using a lot of sarcasm when we
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah.
Don't come at us.
Yeah, exactly. But on that note, I think you are touching on something there that I think we should discuss about. Before we do that, I'd like to take a quick break. But what I want to discuss after the break is these. We mentioned the FBI and how it needs reform. Well, we have an opportunity with these appointees to cabinet members like Kash Patel. I'm curious about Pam Bondi, how that's going to work out as the Attorney General, and Pete Hegseth with Secretary of Defense, and what I think is probably one of the more important ones for this term is the HHS Secretary RFK Jr.
Yes.
So let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about that. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, we'll be right back, guys. Welcome back to the Skeptics Table. So before the break, we talked about the J6, how crazy that whole scenario is, and the different cross-linked webs. It's a mess. And then we mentioned that we wanted to discuss what also is happening in January here, right after the inauguration. President Trump has already nominated several cabinet members, but there's a few that we're really interested in and are hopeful that he's going to that they will get confirmed. And one of those is Mr. Kash Patel.
Yes, sir. So Kash Patel he's nominated for the FBI director.
Yep.
He is currently the senior director of counterterrorism. What are your feelings on him? How do you?
I think this one, it's really hard because I'm very hopeful and excited about RFK Jr. But if you were to pin me down, I think this one has the potential to have the most shake up to the deep state.
Yes.
If he does what he wants to do to reshape the FBI and kind of bring it back to what it used to do. And that was actually fight crime and not.
Yeah, actually be out there on the side of Americans protecting us, not necessarily coming after
Exactly.
Americans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for political party reasons.
You know, there was a clip that we watched earlier. Glenn Beck was interviewing him,
Yeah.
and you know, they were both, or it was him and a couple other guys in the interview, and they're talking about the JFK files, and Kash Patel was like, "You realize I've read the JFK files, all of it. I've read
The
all
9/11
the 9/11 files, read all of it," and the room just went silent. And
Yeah.
there afterwards, there was a little frustration, like, you can't just say that and not tell us anything about what's in there.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I think everybody, even listening to that, was like, "Come
Bro.
on, dude, you tease.
Right.
Stop."
Yeah. But I know he has argued that he does want to release those files, and I know President Trump wants to release those files.
Yeah, a little frustrated he didn't do that in his first term.
Me too.
He made promises of that
Yeah.
and
I
let us down there.
I agree. I think I could be wrong, but I thought maybe the whole January 6th is what threw that whole plan off, because it was kind of a end of term thing that he was going to do, release the JFK files, but that never happened. Don't know if that is true or not. That was my impression, that it just threw everything off.
Yeah,
at the end.
that may be the reason.
Not an excuse.
He did
but
say that, he was influenced to not do it. He was given good
Yeah,
reasons to
that's
not
true.
do it, is what he had said. I don't feel like that's a good reason to not do it.
right.
That's in the past. Everybody that was involved
Yeah.
is gone, as far as I know,
Right.
or at least what I've heard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's what Kash Patel said, that everyone that is involved, that is mentioned in these files, they've passed away. They're gone.
Yes, and that's typically with a lot of these controversial files like that. That's what they wait for. And so we're at that point, and it's a little frustrating to not have that release now.
Right.
And as much as we like Trump and we want this administration to succeed, he's still going to do stuff that frustrates us, and that's one that he did in the past. And I'm hoping he corrects that this term.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard the saying Trump 2.0. Have you heard of that
I
before?
haven't heard that
Yeah.
one.
And it kind of starts after the first assassination attempt.
Makes sense.
Well, yeah, which it does kind of make sense.
He changed.
He did change. I've noticed, he still has his occasional smack talking that he does, but have you noticed, just from the time he was, since the election and he won, he's been very presidential.
Yes, yeah, a lot more professional in the way
Yeah. Way he carries himself.
compared to the first term.
Yeah, exactly. Now that comes
Yeah,
with
I think
experience.
as experience, yeah, and some of that was probably just a realization from his first term that I've got to dial it back. But I also do believe that from the assassination attempt, it brought a sense of mortality, and that really will put a different perspective on somebody's
Yeah.
life. And I feel like he's kind of changed from that in a good way.
For sure. Just for the record, I wasn't going to mention this, but just in case you can hear a whining dog in the background, my dog, Jackson. So my wife and kids, they left to a different town where where her parents live, and Jackson didn't go. Well, Jackson's very obsessed with mom and has been going a little crazy. So if you hear a little whining in the background, I apologize. We've tried everything. Jesse has did a interpretive dance. We tried smoke signals. What else?
Really, nothing else matters. If the interpretive dance didn't work, nothing's going to.
Nothing. Nothing. So I apologize for that. Anyways, you know, like we were saying about Trump, there's something for sure has shifted his mindset because of that first assassination attempt. But so we're saying all this because we're hopeful that Trump is going to do, when he, as far as releasing the FBI or not the FBI, the JFK files, and the 9/11 files. I think he wants to be as transparent as he can for the American people. It's what he's promised, and I think he's got a chip on his shoulders for what they have been doing to him after he lost the election to Biden. What the Biden administration has done to him it's a travesty, and I don't know how he does it. I don't.
He's got more energy and willpower,
Yes,
than most.
yeah. I could not do what he has done.
No, not being attacked like that from
I
so
would
many
say
different
ethic.
fronts on a daily basis.
Yeah,
I enjoy my peace too much.
me too.
And I'm glad that we have somebody out there that's willing to say, hey,
Right.
I'm going to step up and do this regardless.
Yeah.
And that's great. I think he's a patriot for it.
Yeah. And, some, people that do get frustrated with Trump and his sporadic nature at times. But if he didn't have that type of personality, I don't think he would have been able to withstand all the arrows that have been thrown at him.
No, I don't think so either.
He has that little bit of a twitch, where he's got a crazy part to him where he just doesn't give a flip what others think of him. And
Yeah.
I think he genuinely loves the country and wants the country to do well and wants it to be first. And that's something we haven't had the past 4 years.
Yeah, and I think that's true. And I think he's felt that way for a long time. You can look back at some of his interviews that he's done decades ago, where he mentions that, saying, hey, we need somebody. As a matter of fact, I think that was an interview with Oprah when Oprah was asking him if he wanted to run for president.
Yep.
And he said, no, absolutely not. I think there's other people out there, and I hope there's other people out there that will stand up and do this. I don't want that job. I think politics is a nasty business. But I hope somebody does stand up and do it.
Yeah.
And nobody did. And
No.
that's why he threw his hat in the ring. And
Yep.
here we are. Anyways, we're kind of trailing off subject here. We
Yeah.
were trying to get to the nominations.
Yeah. And that's what I was about to get at. So we were talking about Kash Patel, right? But what about, how does this whole confirmation process work in general? So we were looking at some stats. There's this one document that was published by the Center for Presidential Transition, and they stated that, so for Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama, 84% of cabinet secretaries nominated before Inauguration Day received quick Senate approval on an average of 2.4 days. So that's President Clinton, Bush, and Obama, 2.4 days, right?
So that what they're saying there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what they're saying there is after the president-elect put his nominations in, it took the Senate an average of 2.4 days to confirm.
Correct, after Inauguration Day.
And so, in case y'all don't know, the way these confirmations go, the president can't just say, hey, I want to nominate this person, and they're in. They have to have permission from the Senate. And so what they'll do is they'll vet their nominations and either reject or approve. And then after they approve, then they can go forward with the process of actually being sworn in.
Mm-hmm. Jesse, how many, we read that there was another article, I think from the Heritage Foundation. How many total were not approved? Do you know how many total were not approved by the Senate
So
that were put up for a vote?
Yeah, the ones that were put up for a vote in the Senate, and I believe this was from the last 100 years, only 3 of them were rejected. So out of all those presidential picks for their cabinet, only 3 were actually rejected by the Senate.
Okay.
And I would like to see if that number goes up on this one.
Yeah. Sorry, that's Mr. Jackson again. He's going a little crazy. Yeah, and so we mentioned the 2.4 days for Clinton, Bush, and Obama, right? What about President Trump? How many days did we find out about his first term?
Well, on the first term, I believe you just take that decimal out and it changes from 2.4 days to 24 days.
Yes.
Which is quite a jump. Now there was some reasoning given to that. Neither one of us, I believe, think that it was a good enough reason to jump that up to 24 days. But you can expand on that.
Yeah. So, so President Trump's elected in 2016. I know for myself, I was very surprised. And from what has been recorded and said about President Trump during that time was that he was even surprised that he won. And so he didn't, you have that. And then he's never been a politician, no experience on just how government works in general. And so they're saying that he was a little behind on his nominating cabinet members during the transition process. And so there wasn't much time beforehand for the Senate to do their investigating. And so that's the excuse they have on there. But 24 days?
Up from 2.4 days.
Yeah, 24 days.
Quite a jump.
Yeah. But 14 out of the 15 secretaries Trump officially submitted to the Senate were eventually confirmed in 2016. So only 1 was not confirmed. Now, is that going to be about the same this time, or is there going to be, there's definitely more bold, and just so we know, or just for the record, Trump has said, I think he said it on the Rogan podcast, that there was definitely some cabinet members that he regretted, didn't know hardly anybody in government, and was relying on others to,
Yes.
nominate these members.
Yeah, he said there was a lot of picks that he put out there that they didn't do enough homework on, and it ended up biting him.
Yeah.
Because he ended up with a cabinet full of members that were not loyal.
Yeah.
And
Had a lot
that,
of
that's a
leaks.
problem. Yeah, there was a lot of leaks. That's a problem whenever you're picking a team that's supposed to be on your side.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a different story this time, because this time he did expect to win, and he's got a little more experience, and he's definitely putting more emphasis on people that are going to be on his side, not just fillers.
Yeah. So just wanted to kind of give you a history on that, on what the confirmation looks like. It used to be you had to have 60, so 60%, so it'd be 60 out of 100 senators had to approve, but that was changed. I believe it was changed by Harry Reid in 2011, and don't know exactly, that may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was 2011. And it was called the nuclear option, and so they took away the ability to filibuster. So you would have maybe one senator just stand up. A filibuster means you just talk and talk and talk, and to the point where you are trying to get other senators to say, all right, forget it. We'll just take away this nomination, because you cannot move forward if you have someone filibustering. that's a whole other thing. The whole history of the filibuster. It's a process to stop a potential nominee.
Yeah, it's a loophole tool.
Yeah. So Harry Reid, it was a tradition in the Senate, and they used the nuclear, quote unquote, nuclear option, and now it just needs a majority, and that's a 51-49. If it's a tie, 50-50, the vice president is the tiebreaker vote, and so that would be J.D. Vance. That's a little history on the confirmation process. So we talked about Kash Patel, right? We're pretty excited about Kash Patel. Yes or no? Do you think he's going to get confirmed?
I think he will. I think there's going to be pushback, of course, just because a lot of these picks are controversial, which is going to happen anytime Trump does anything.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some pushback, but yes, I think ultimately he will be confirmed.
Yeah. Wasn't he? Oh gosh, let me look that up real fast. I'm pretty sure Kash Patel was I know he worked for was it for the FBI during the first term? I think he was the deputy director of the FBI.
Ooh,
But so I know he has some experience in the FBI. But I don't know. I'll find that here in a little bit. But so Kash Patel, then there's another one that we both are pretty excited about, and that is RFK Jr.
yes.
What is he being nominated for?
For HHS, that's the Health and Human Services.
Okay.
And I don't know if anybody has seen RFK with his shirt off, but that dude's pretty healthy. I feel like
This is true.
the way he lives his life is a pretty good credit on his resume.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so we're excited about RFK Jr. He, it's been part of the whole MAHA
Yes.
movement, Make America Healthy Again, right?
Yep.
Which I think was the big, it was a huge endorsement, and I think it really put Trump over the top to get that, because the MAHA movement, I feel, is more leaning towards the socially liberal side, more, their focus is mainly on health. And that is, there's been a lot of issues with dyes being put in foods. I know
Yes.
he's talked to, he showed different, an example was I think it was
Fruit Loops.
Fruit Loops, and the different colors, right? The colors were very bold and vibrant, the Fruit Loops made here in America, but the reason why is because they're using these artificial food colorings or dyes for these, and there has been some studies show that it's very detrimental to our health, especially for kids that are eating this and consuming it, right?
Absolutely.
But right across the border in Canada, is that the case?
Yeah, right up across the border in Canada, they do not do that. They use natural colorings. Now, I don't necessarily know that there's a study saying that Canadians are healthier than we are.
Probably
But I feel like that's a pretty obvious jump that if you're going to put an artificial dye in something, and you can do the same thing with a natural healthy dye, why wouldn't you just do that?
Yeah.
And really, it probably just comes down to money, cost.
That's exactly right. That's it. So the question is, why wouldn't they do the same here?
Yes.
Well, it's money.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to use these artificial dyes than it is to use dyes for, I've heard
I think they use
beets. I've heard spirulina for the green.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just cheaper to use these artificial dyes.
And don't get me wrong, me and Sam are both capitalists. We love the idea of making money.
For sure.
At what point does your health factor into that?
It will at least inform the public if they have a informed,
Yes.
if they're informed on what they're purchasing and they're still okay with doing that, then okay, let them buy it.
Yes.
But it needs there needs to be an option to where I have a dye-free, or it's using natural dyes compared to the artificial dyes. And that's just one thing that RFK is wanting to
implement.
Implement.
And that is kind of crazy to me. That is one of the most controversial things that has been talked about.
Right.
That's what keeps getting pushed. And I just don't feel like that's a very controversial issue.
No, I don't think so either.
I feel like the majority of American people are all pretty much on the same side of that. I feel like the traditional media is pushing that more so than the American people. I don't think you're going to come across anybody on the streets and be like, hey, would you rather have artificial or natural? And you're going to have very few pick artificial. That's just crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I was looking through this article about Kash Patel, but I'm not seeing anything regarding his previous work, but I'm almost certain he did work for the FBI. I just don't remember if he was deputy director or not, but so he does have experience in the FBI. Anyways, so we mentioned the dyes. There's also, he wants to at least do more research on the vaccines.
Yes, and that's another big one. And I thought that would be more controversial than the dye subject.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be. It's pushed a lot.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be the top one.
Right.
But I love the idea of getting more information on what the actual effects of these vaccines are, and the sheer number of vaccines that are given to our kids is mind-blowing.
Well, for example, so there was a situation where so they are requiring the influenza vaccine for my wife's work. Well, we had to get the necessary paperwork for her to be exempt for the flu vaccine, just the flu vaccine.
That's a bit excessive.
Yeah. Well, you don't want me to say what letter I told her that she should write, but
I've got a pretty good idea what it might say in there.
Yeah. So, I'm very hopeful that there will at least be that we can get back to science when it comes to vaccines.
Yes.
Be transparent, make sure it has thorough research, and I think that, these these pharmaceutical companies need to be held accountable. There needs to be some type of accountability.
Yes.
And I'm hopeful that there's, at least some type of pathway or policy that will at least start to hold these vaccine or these pharmaceutical companies accountable.
Yes. That's the whole idea of them having complete immunity from any adverse effects that are caused to the general public. We have no recourse to go after them and say, hey, you did not provide this information and this happened. And all they have to say is, well, good luck. I hope you have a good life. Bye.
Yeah. Exactly.
So hopefully something happens there.
Yeah. So, RFK Jr., we're excited about RFK Jr. Do you think he's going to get confirmed?
I think he will too. Again, that's one of those deals where, of course, he was a lifelong Democrat. He's moved over. He's joined Trump's cabinet.
Yeah.
A lot of Republicans, I liked him before the election. I liked him. I did not want him as president.
Sure.
I think this is a great role for him to be in. But even a lot of Republicans liked him is what I'm getting at. A lot of Democrats liked him. So you're going to have that push from both sides of the aisle saying, yes, we want him. I feel like that would be hard for the Senate to push back on.
Yeah.
So I think he'll end up getting confirmed.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think so too. I'm more worried about Kash Patel. And the reason why I think the deep state is more concerned about secrets being revealed rather than
Yes.
worrying about the health of Americans. I think
Yeah.
I think that's big. That's going to be more on their agenda to make sure that the deep state and the things, the projects, the different possible hidden agencies that could be out there, that I believe are out there. I really hope that some revelation is going to be revealed on that, and so that is my concern for Kash Patel, is that he's definitely bold and courageous, and that bold and courageous personality is going to could come back to haunt him in the confirmation process.
Yeah. And just a quick side note for those that don't know what the deep state is. The deep state is what many believe is the group of people / agencies that are actually controlling what goes on in the country. Mm-hmm. So we have our processes as far as the judicial branch and the executive branch and we have our powers that we vote in.
Yep.
But there's a group behind the scenes that we don't vote in that has a lot of pull and push and controls a lot of things. And that's what we're referring to.
Yeah. These unelected
Yes.
bureaucrats, basically. So we have RFK Jr., Kash Patel. Then there's one more that we are been kind of watching and hopeful about, and that's the Pete Hegseth.
Pete Hegseth. Yep.
Right. So Pete, he has an interesting background.
Yes.
One that's the most popular is that he was a Fox News, I think, morning anchor for, I don't know what their morning show's called, but he was a Fox News anchor. But he also has another background that ties in with his the cabinet he's been nominated for, and that's Secretary of Defense, right?
Yes.
What is that?
Yeah. He was in the Army. He had the rank of major. I will say the interesting thing about Hegseth, I think there's a lot of support on the MAGA side for him. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are excited about him, and I find that kind of funny and ironic, just because, well, he was a member of the media.
Yeah.
And that's been one of our biggest fights, is against the media. Mm-hmm. And here we are. We got one of them that we're nominating in for defense.
Right.
But I think he's a great guy.
Yeah.
From everything I've seen, I think he'll do a good job at it.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily lump him in as traditional media.
Right. Definitely different. And, I think his interviews he's done just through the media after he was nominated for Secretary of Defense, I like his message. He wants to, I think his number one message is that he wants to bring the warrior spirit back to the military.
Yes.
And just get away from the woke BS that's been plaguing the military, as far as like transgenderism and having this rear admiral, I can't remember his name or her name, his name, but
his name,
yeah. But they've just made a joke out of the military the past 4 years.
Yeah.
And so I'm hopeful on that he can bring back the warrior spirit and take care of our guys in the military.
So you were speaking of Rachel Levine.
Rachel Levine, that's right. What's his? It probably doesn't even.
What's his real name? Good luck finding that online,
exactly.
because nobody's going to
They
refer
probably
to him
scrubbed
as that.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does look kind of like a Mitch McConnell in drag, so it could be.
Is that
So is
Mitch
it-
McConnell's alter ego when
could
he's
be.
not spacing out during interviews?
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm never going to get that picture out of my head. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. So Pete Hegseth, pretty excited about him. And then there was one more, and I don't want to throw you out there to where, because we didn't discuss it, but it just came to me, and I'm like, I don't know why I didn't mention that, but that's Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, I did think about mentioning her to you, and that's the fact that you have RFK being nominated and Tulsi Gabbard being nominated, both former Democrats.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just shows you how different this administration is. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it also shows you just how much the country is moving back towards a central position as opposed to being extreme left and extreme right.
Yep.
The fact that people are coming together from different parties, and saying, hey, let's work together and fix this. It's getting out of hand.
Yeah, it really is. I'm pretty excited about Tulsi Gabbard. She has been nominated for the Director of National Intelligence. She was a former Democratic House member. She did run for president in 2020. It's a pretty funny clip too. If you want to watch, check out a clip with Tulsi and Kamala Harris during the debate, and she just dismantled her. I mean, destroyed her candidacy, and she shortly after had to withdraw.
She dropped out.
Yeah,
and then somehow became the VP pick, even though nobody wanted her.
Nobody wanted her. No.
And that was a DEI pick for sure.
Yeah.
As well as Rachel Levine and what was their name? Sam Brenton. Sam Brenton.
Was it the bald one that was stealing
women's suitcases out of airports?
I mean, but what dude doesn't steal women's suitcases in the airports? Come on.
I'm not gonna lie. That's a pretty common thing, as well as walking your male partners on a leash.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And also being able to be in charge of nuclear waste. So definitely a sound mind there. We had good picks there.
Yeah. Why don't we just throw this Slappy in here? He can handle that.
Yeah. All of a sudden, these Trump picks aren't sounding so controversial.
Exactly right. Well, a big movement. This just kind of came to me was Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk I think he's going to play a pivotal role on holding a lot of these senators accountable.
Yes.
And I've noticed Elon too, talking about it a little bit on X, is that, if some of these, squishy Republicans are on the fence about nominating or voting yes to affirm these nominations, then, okay, what did you do whenever Biden nominated his cabinet? Did you vote for example, maybe John Kirby, a complete disaster? If you voted for these knuckleheads, but now you're going to vote against one of these cabinet members or these cabinet nominees, then you need to be primaried.
Yes.
And so I think Charlie Kirk is going to have a pivotal role on that. He's been very vocal on X, and it seems that even had a kind of a change of heart for Joni Ernst, the senator in Iowa. She was kind of the language that she was putting out there whenever she interviewed Hegseth was almost kind of pointing to where she was on the fence, and there was a lot of pushback. And Charlie Kirk was one of those, and just got his big platform that he has, and she came out, the wording was a little iffy, but it sounded like she was on board now for Hegseth. So I think we as Americans and as conservatives need to be more vocal with these nominations and hold our senators accountable. We were discussing before we started recording, and we were kind of angry that we didn't record our discussion, was that we as conservatives don't do a very good job of holding our senators accountable and our congressmen and don't do a very good job of primarying them.
Yes.
For example, like one of ours, well, I guess you'll know we live in Texas, and that's John Cornyn. And then we have, how does Lindsey Graham stay in office that long in the freaking one of the reddest states in the nation, in South Carolina?
And somehow just maintains hold.
Yeah. Blows my mind.
I will say, I think a lot of that will change just from the work that Charlie Kirk is doing.
Yeah.
You talk about a phenomenal job getting out and getting the younger vote to actually really go into these college campuses and get college age, mostly males, really excited to come out and be a part of the political process.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done a great job, and I think he's going to keep doing that. And I think that will help us when it comes to primary and getting, well, draining the swamp.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, so, we were talking about Tulsi Gabbard. She's been nominated for DNI, which is Director of National Intelligence, which I've been told, I've been told personally, but it was, I can't remember where, I think it was on the Glenn Beck program. I don't know. It was one of those podcasts. They were talking about how the DNI position is one of the most important cabinet positions nominated, and that's because of its the power it holds. DNI, I believe FBI is under the DNI, CIA is under the DNI. It's just a very important cabinet position, and I think her just independent nature and her frustration with the deep state as well is just it's a grand slam nomination by Trump. I think she's going to be great.
Yeah, I think that was a great pick.
Yeah.
And not expected.
No, not
great
at all.
Pick.
Right. But yeah, I mean, that's, so yes or no, do you think she's going to get confirmed?
Yeah, I think that one's going to go through pretty smoothly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we'll see any issues there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she's okay. I would say out of those four, I think the number one easiest, and I say, I don't mean easy. None of these are going to be easy to get through. But I think it would be Pete Hegseth, then RFK Jr., then Tulsi, then Cash for me.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah.
It will be interesting to see, though. Y'all keep an eye on it and see if any of them get rejected and see if that number 3 jumps up.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll just be a little more proof out there that the deep state is working hard.
Right. Well, and I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but the reason why that number is so low at 3 is because a lot of times, especially in the modern political era, presidents will just withdraw those nominations because they know, based on the interviews that they've given to the Senate committees, that this person just isn't going to be able to make it through.
Will never pass.
Yeah.
And that is what that 3 was. That was recorded votes.
Yeah.
So yeah, Sam's saying a lot will be unofficially rejected before it ever goes to vote.
Yeah.
And you can look at Matt Gaetz as an example of that.
Exactly.
And I think Matt Gaetz would have been a good pick as far as shaking things up. He definitely would have shaken some things up.
Yeah, he's an interesting one, isn't he? Like he does frustrate me a little bit. I just think sometimes he can just be a little annoying.
Yeah.
Maybe it's his face. I don't know. Maybe it's not anything personal, but
by the way, we don't have anything against people's faces in general. There's a reason we don't have video on this podcast.
Well, see, the thing is that we actually dress in drag 24/7. No, not really. But yeah, I don't know. That's what I was going to mention too, is Matt Gaetz. And so if you weren't aware, he personally withdrew.
Yes.
At least that's the story. I don't know exactly if Trump just said, "Hey, this isn't going to work out," but he said that, according to his statement, this was his decision to withdraw, so it would be a smooth transition. He didn't want to hold up any nominees.
Yes.
And it would have been I think it would have been a good.
I think
for
it would
sure
have been a good
better
fit.
than, which I don't know a lot about this gal that's been nominated, Pam Bondi. I know she used to be Attorney General in Florida. What makes me a little nervous about her is when she wasn't nominated, Jeb Bush, I think he tweeted something happy or congratulating her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like
that
like
always
any.
makes you think. Whenever
Yeah, when those idiots are happy, that's never good.
It's not a good sign. And that's what I was going to say too. I don't know much about her
Yeah.
in general either, but there is that hesitation just because there has been a lot of support from the Rhino Republicans.
Yep.
And if y'all can't tell, we're trying to get away from that system. We're definitely more conservative. We want
Yeah.
to do best for the country, not for the Republican Party.
Right. Yeah. I can't remember who says this, but they were like, basically the statement says that no one hates conservatives more than or Democrats hate conservatives, right? But no one hates conservatives more than Democrats than the Republican establishment,
Yeah.
And I find that statement so true.
It is very true because the conservatives kind of place the establishment in the middle of two enemies because they have the Democrats that they're against,
Yeah.
but they're also having this conservative movement push back on them, and they don't like that. They want. We talked about this earlier. How the Democrats are pretty good about keeping their people in lockstep,
Yeah.
and the Republican Party is very much not like that now. And that's because of the split between establishments and conservatives.
Yeah, for sure. One more we can just kind of briefly mention, and that's Marco Rubio. He's been nominated for Secretary of State, which is a very important position,
It
right?
is. And speaking of rhinos, here we go.
Yeah, really disappointed in this guy. Ever since the Gang of Eight, he was part of that Gang of Eight and was really pushing for the Dreamer amnesty, and just a disappointment. I was so big on Rubio whenever he was those first couple years. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But I'm a little nervous about Rubio which he'll be confirmed easily.
Yes. Yeah, there will be no issue there at all.
But I mean, what do you think? What do you think about?
About Rubio in general, yeah, again, he's more establishment.
Yeah.
It's for a campaign that has been run on draining the swamp, that was a disappointment pick. But he's the pick.
Yep.
And nothing we can do about that other than shout our disappointment over it.
Right.
I hope he does a great job.
Me too.
I'll
be rooting for him.
I hope he realizes that there's a shift and that he starts playing
Yeah.
on the right side.
Has the America First agenda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't think he is
I don't
hate
think-
America, whatever, nothing like that. But putting America first is what we're aiming at. So
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be a rogue actor or anything like
No.
that. But
it's just when you're
gotta be
expecting
careful.
steak for dinner and you show up and you have hamburgers, it's still, you'll eat it,
Right.
but you really want that steak.
yeah.
So this is, I'm going to shift it a little bit on you. Probably the most important nomination is for the Supreme Court. And there is, so during Trump's first term, we got to take a really good jump forward with 3 conservative
Huge.
judicials. There is a chance that he'll get to confirm at least one more. And that is it. So you have Samuel Alito and you have Clarence Thomas that are both on retirement watch.
Yep.
They're in their 70s, I think 74 or 72, somewhere around there. So they're getting up there in age.
I think Thomas is a little. I think he's in his 80s.
76. I just pulled it up.
Is he 76?
Clarence Thomas 76. Samuel Alito is 74. Both up there on retirement watch.
Okay.
If they play it smart, obviously you're getting at the age now, you're not going to be around a whole lot longer.
Right.
And if you just hang in there for 4 more years and we end up with a Democrat president on the next term, you run the risk of them being able to appoint a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
So the wise move for the conservative party is for them to just retire and open up that position for Trump to make those picks. Now, neither one of them has come out and said, yes, I'm going to retire so Trump can have a pick.
Which they normally don't.
That's not typical
that.
for them to do. Hopefully they do.
Yeah.
And we can get some extra conservative justices in there.
Right.
Now, they are not adding seats, because I know there's been a lot of talk about that. Adding more seats. That's not what is being pushed. This is just replacing existing ones.
Right.
So, but I do look forward to seeing what happens there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You were mentioning whether or not if they're gonna, so Alito and Thomas, if they're gonna retire or not, at least by the end of the term. Well, if you can recall, this is what Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't do. She didn't retire.
Yes.
And it was but she ended up passing away right at the end of Obama. Was it Obama? Yeah, Obama's term. And one good thing that Mitch McConnell actually did not confirm, because he nominated Merrick Garland at the time, who is now the Attorney General. But Merrick Garland, there was never a vote even put. There was not any hearings or anything like that. The process
never went forward.
Exactly. And Mitch McConnell's stance was that he was going to wait and let the American people choose. Once they choose the president, then they'll go through the process of the confirmation hearings.
And that was close enough to election. That was the wise move.
It was, but it ticked off a lot of liberals.
It did.
Like, Ruth, why didn't you just retire a little bit earlier? Because there was a lot of rambling. They were trying to get her to retire.
There was a lot of push for it.
Yeah, but that hunger for power it's a strong power.
It
right?
is.
To get rid. I mean, it is not easy to hand off that type of power. And so she didn't do it. And so I hope that we don't have a similar situation with Thomas or Alito.
I agree. And I do think you asked about predictions on the last one. This isn't necessarily a 2025 prediction, but this is a 4-year term prediction.
Like it.
My prediction is Alito will not retire.
Okay.
He's going to stay in. He's not necessarily a Trump fan, not necessarily against him, but I just don't think that he is gonna step down just for Trump to pick another one.
Right.
If anybody is going to, my prediction is that Thomas will, and I do think he will wait until probably the 3rd year of Trump's term to do so.
You think so?
I think so. It'll either be the 3rd or beginning of the 4th.
When you say that, because I was thinking about that too, but I would be a little concerned because right now the Republicans hold the Senate. They're the majority, and so but in 2 years that could change.
Yes.
And so that would be a big change on having the votes for whoever Trump nominates.
Yes, and that would be a gamble.
Yeah.
But again, Trump will still get to nominate, and if they reject one, he'll still get to nominate.
Yeah.
The second option.
True.
And we'll see if this does happen. Are we going to have another Kavanaugh era?
Oh gosh.
Confirmation?
Man.
I hope not, but
right.
It'll be interesting to see. So there's my prediction. probably third year, we'll see Thomas step off into retirement,
Yeah.
and Alito will hang on. And I hope that doesn't bite us in the butt, but that's my prediction.
Okay. There you go, guys. There's his 4-year prediction right there.
Yeah,
We'll hold him to it.
do it.
If it doesn't come true, then we'll probably just throw you in a Shark Tank and let you get eaten slowly. So, anyways, moving right along.
Love you too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that unless there is another nominee you want to cover.
I don't have any more at the top of mind.
Okay. Well,
I do have. Are you trying to end it, or do you have time for a bit more?
let's go.
I do have. This is just a side
Okay.
thing, but here we are, beginning of the year. We're about to go into a Trump term.
Yep.
So I just wanted to throw out some numbers and see if anything changes a year from now.
Okay.
I went to the grocery store. And just so y'all know, we are recording this on January 1st.
This is
So
very accurate.
I will go back on January 1st, 2025 and see if these prices change. The one thing I forgot to look at was gas prices. If you want to look that up, we'll throw that in. What they are currently. But, and I did all great value brands of this. That way, nothing will change per company. So for a 32 ounce bottle of ketchup is $1.94. 1 pound of lean hamburger meat is $7.47. A 40 ounce jar of peanut butter is $3.98. A loaf of bread is $1.42. A gallon of milk is $3.27. A dozen eggs is $3.97, which that price has fluctuated so much recently. Who knows what that's going to
Yeah.
look like? So those are the current prices other than fuel, and we will check back next year and see what it looks like. See if
Yeah, fuel. So right here it's showing, according to GasBuddy.com, at Sam's right now it's $2.34 a
Okay.
gallon. That's the cheapest in town, and that goes all the way up to like $2.40 something or $2.39 a gallon. So, which is it's reasonable.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I just want to see what the change will be a year from now under a Trump term.
So, you think it stays the same, $2.34 around that, or do you think it's going to be more or lower
Just on grocery prices, with it being,
for fuel?
I'm sorry, I meant gas. For fuel prices. Honestly, I think it's going to be about the same.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of shift in the first year of that.
Okay.
I think a better prediction or a better indicator of that is what it's going to look like in 3 years or
Yeah.
so, where there's actually been time to try to drill more and improve our refineries and improve our relations with other countries and see what happens there.
Yeah.
But we'll look back in a year and see.
I like it. I like it. Well, I think that that about covers it for the first day of the year of 2025.
The first day, first official podcast episode. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, and I would leave y'all with a tease for the next episode, but
We haven't really, I guess, decided yet.
not
have we?
yet. But come back because it will be interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's your chance if, we just started this podcast, so we may not have any listeners really other than our family members. But if we have a listener that is not a family member, or maybe there's a family member that wants to hear a certain topic, well, like, share, subscribe to our podcast. We are currently on Apple Podcasts, Audible,
Yes, iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio.
We're working on YouTube.
Working on YouTube. Spotify is a little weird right now because of a software issue, but we will get on that. But we would love to have you guys follow us and like, share, and comment. Comment, and tell us what you want to hear from us, or give us some feedback. Tell us how
Tell us how much you hate
dumb,
us. We don't care.
how dumb we are. We already know that, by the way, but you can mention it. You know, friendly or nefarious, either one. So we'd love to hear from you regardless. And we will definitely be back in the coming days with some incredible knowledge or dumb takes. You decide. So,
Alrighty, we'll see you next time.
all right. Bye, guys.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoy this type of content, and leave a comment if you have any topic you would like for us to cover. Have a great day.
Mind's always drifting somewhere out there. Questions lost, floating in the air. Thoughts like whispers calling me near. Visions blurry but crystal clear. Wandering mind, never quite still. Chasing shadows, climbing the hill. Restless spirit